Okay, so in this second video, what I want to do is go through section B. Section B is all about producing a design brief and specification, and the maximum amount of marks that you can score in this section is 10 marks. Okay, so what we're looking to do is produce a design brief and clearly justify their client and link that to the context. We also need to put together a detailed and justified specification looking at the research that we have collected before. So what will that look like in terms of pages? The first page you need to create is something like this. On this page you need to actually talk about who your client is. Here you can see a picture of this student's client. They've actually talked about their client and the target audience here, so talked about how old they are, perhaps what gender they are, what their interests were, if that has an influence on the project, and all of different things like that. So being really clear about who their client is and what they can do to help them. What we then need to talk about is your design brief. So your design brief, a good design brief always starts with, I intend to design and make A. And then you go on to talk about what you will design and make. And in a good design brief, you will talk about what you're making, you will talk about why there is a need to make the manufacture and design the product, you will talk about who it's for, so reference back to your client and your target market, and you'll talk about where it will be used. Okay, and that needs to be a variety of sentences that answer those 4 W's, making sure that all of them are covered. We also need to include somewhere on the page something relating to time management here. So on this page here we have a little bit actually making sure that they've thought about the time management, and here we have a Gantt chart. Now on this Gantt chart we have the months that they're taking part in the project along the top, and they have all the different sections along the side, and then the stars relate to when the student intends to actually complete those particular projects in sort of chronological order. And at the end, just to summarise, we have an evaluation that actually talks about what happened on this page, about the client, their time planning, and also the design brief. We then move on to the specification. Now this is arguably the most important part of the project. In the specification, you're going to write a specific list of the criteria that your product must meet. We need to comment about a variety of different things, again relating to Access FM. So the first thing you're going to need to comment about is the aesthetics of the project, how the project looks. So you're going to comment about colour, you're going to comment about style, you're going to comment about form, texture, things like that. We then need to go into cost and how much the maximum cost would be for the product, the customer, the size, the safety, the function, the materials, and the environment. We then need to comment about timescale. Now the mistake that most students make is they don't be specific enough about the criteria. You need to make sure that the criteria is measurable. If you use things like must be light or must be expensive, they are not measurable criteria. You need to make sure that you put in a maximum weight in kilograms, or a minimum weight if that's relevant, or a maximum size, or a maximum cost. Don't just use vague terms like expensive and light, because that's not what the examiner wants to see. We then need to justify these points in the second column here, relating back to the research that you did. Perhaps you found the maximum size of your product was a certain size because that relates to the site survey you did looking at its location. Perhaps you found out the maximum cost was a certain cost because you found out during your client interview that that was the budget your client had, or when you looked at various different products during the product analysis, they were all around that sort of price range. So you need to justify it relating to the research that you did, and you can put in here the references in that third column where that research was found. How did you find out the information to justify it? We can also talk about whether the research that you carried out was primary, whether you had direct access to it, or whether it was secondary. Was it something you found out on the internet or through books and magazines? We then need to talk about whether the data that you found out is quantitative or qualitative. So quantitative means a numerical value, or qualitative is something that you basically can't put in numerical values. It's just a thought process. Okay, so the detailed specification with justification needs to be completed in the form of a chart like you see in front of you on the screen here. And these are basically the 2 pages that go into making criterion B. This specification will be very useful to you later on, as all of your ideas will be evaluated against it. And as we said, all of this criterion that you have here, the justification and how you found that out, relates into the research that you did. Okay, so I hope you find this video useful. This is how you get top marks in criterion B. You need to make sure that you do these pages in your own style. You do not copy these examples word for word, and that they are produced using your own information that you've found out yourself.